Hey everyone, welcome to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
And I'm Producer Dave.
Back with another review for you guys. This is for a documentary. It's not unlike another documentary that we reviewed on the channel not too long ago, sometime in 2017. That was for a movie called Spookers. This one is for a movie called Haunters, The Art of the Scare. Now, we finally got to see this because it is available on Netflix. And I'll just start off by saying that between the two, this was a much better film, much more interesting and well executed, in my opinion.
Okay.
I'm not trying to tear down the other because that one was okay, but this one just, I thought, really nailed the execution of showing a couple of different aspects of a couple of different types of haunts. So I thought it was sort of more well-rounded. It was very well researched, well shot. Overall, I really enjoyed this movie. What did you think overall?
Overall, it was well shot, well scripted. I guess you could say as a documentary. So well put together documentary. If you're interested in haunted houses, I think what appeals to the mass audience is the fact that these aren't just your typical haunted houses. These are the extreme haunted houses.
Well, actually, that's just one of the three kinds we're seeing.
Well, I know, but that's what the draw is. The draw is, no, I want to see what these, extreme haunted houses are all about. And so I think for that aspect alone, it keeps your attention, it keeps your but the documentary, the director and the editor did such a fantastic job sort of weaving together this sort of half reality show / documentary about people who create haunted houses no matter what.
Yeah, because
against all odds.
But overall, you enjoyed it though?
I did enjoy it. I mean, it was it was a documentary about people who make haunted houses. I mean, it wasn't Event Horizon.
No, well, obviously not. Well,
right.
Well, okay. Well, let me try and maybe head this one up then, because the story, is like you said, it's following people that make haunted houses, but specifically, there's I think about 3 different groups that they're following. There's one group that has been putting together a haunt for a number of years. That's your more regular sort of haunt. And then there's a guy that is so obsessed with Halloween and has been his whole life. He puts together a haunt every year at his own house. And
the manor one, right?
No. He puts it at his own house and lets people in for like a can of food or something like that. But he's got this real sort of weird relationship with his wife,
right?
Because she doesn't like Halloween and he's obsessed with it.
So that's the story.
And
it's more about.
But then there's the third guy, which is the guy that runs McCaney Manor.
Okay.
And that is the extreme haunt that we follow.
Gotcha.
So you follow a regular sort of normal style haunt. You follow this guy that makes his own haunt against his wife's wishes, and then you've got the guys running this extreme haunt. You're following these groups of people, and it keeps cutting between them as their stories sort of unfold and why they like doing what they do and what is the deal. And most of it does seem to focus on the extreme haunt guy.
Right.
But, like you said, that's kind of the bread and butter of the film. That's the draw of the film.
But also,
I wanted to watch that part.
But what I'm going to say is I completely agree with you. The story of the film is actually about the relationships. For example, a lot of our audience are horror freaks. They're obsessed with horror. They're obsessed with anything horror. And sometimes when you have a significant other who's not as into horror as you are, potentially, that can cause friction, especially around the one time of the year when it becomes more than an obsession. It becomes a lifestyle. It becomes, everything, every waking thought and activity is driven towards creating this haunt for strangers. And I think that's where the actual drama of the story is.
Well, yeah, that's what it gets to. Like, that's what I really liked about it. Really good documentaries still have arcs.
Yeah.
And this one did have an arc for sort of everyone, and the more serious emotional side didn't really come until the final act of the movie.
Yeah.
But it put a twist on everything that was super interesting. Like man, that guy that's obsessed with it while his wife kind of hates Halloween or hates his obsession with it was super interesting. The McKamey Manor guy was super interesting. The other people were interesting. Like,
but it was also understandable.
Right.
It wasn't. It was almost kind of like, okay, so Dave, producer Dave, I like haunted houses, but I like it from the production side, so from the side of the husband, way more than the side of the person who wants to go to a haunted house and be scared. I like the concept way more, and I've done haunted houses where I've gotten to scare people. It's much more fun to scare people than to be scared, in my opinion. So I can relate to this weird obsession that these three arcs have, but also there's parts with the most extreme haunted house where you're just kind of like, okay, this guy, it might actually be beyond what the enjoyable factor that I enjoy it. Like, it's almost kind of creepy in a sense. And so they touch on that, and I thought that was another thing that made it intriguing. The story, it made it intriguing because it was like you got to see this guy like torturing people, and they paid to be tortured by him, and he's having a good time.
Yeah, and that part is kind of disturbing. Like, he's kind of the villain of the movie
a little bit.
But that's sort of an interesting thing about a documentary. Can be, pretty blah. History Channel to me is like, well, I'm sure the History Channel is really interesting to a lot of people, but to me it's a little bit textbooky. This was not that way. This actually played out very interestingly, and that might be because I'm really interested in haunted houses and sort of that aspect of it, but
especially not have ever been to one of those sort of like
never
full
having
contact,
been to one of those. Yeah, no.
Yeah, sort of thing.
And I absolutely would not. Like,
right.
There's
right. So it's
I
more about
to be force fed shit that I would never eat. I would puke, and I would this like getting locked up with your head in a cage and shit like that. Like, I just can't cotton to that, man. That would not. That's not my idea of fun. But I'm not that place's audience.
But there is some enjoyment to seeing other people put themselves through it willingly. I think that's the key, is that the people choose to do this.
They start willingly.
Right. And then they realize, oh, no, wait. No, this
But then there's no... But the McKamey Manor or whatever, it's McKamey, I think it's McKamey, but they actually have a no safe word rule.
Right.
So you're
Which
stuck
I disagree with.
until the end. Yeah. But you know that going into it.
Yeah. But that's the thing. I think there was definitely some controversy over that specific haunt because of that. Not just because of that reason, but because of the extreme thing that they did in a private property. So like the neighbors were like, no, we don't want you doing this. But I think overall the film told the story about, like you said, 3 different people who spend their entire year creating something to scare people on different levels. And I think that's something that not only our audience can enjoy watching it, but also, even as someone who didn't completely, wouldn't say this is the best documentary ever made, it was still worth watching because it was interesting, and it was like, wow, these people really go all out with their haunted houses. So, like I said, overall, I would definitely recommend it.
Now, the cinematography is, it's not focusing on its cinematography because it is a documentary. It's a mixture of a lot of handheld camera. And the sit-down interviews and things like that. But the editing is sort of the star here, how it's put together, like we've said a couple times.
I mean, it does feel at moments it's like a big commercial, but at the same time, they are delving into these people's psyches, these people's characters, these people's real relationships that are actually suffering due to their passion in life. And just because their passion is horror doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means that their significant other or whatever has a hard time playing along. And so I think there is that sort of balance in the documentary. So
now let's talk about the effects, because that is a big part of the haunted houses, and that was at least fun to see. How they did some of the stuff, and a lot of the there was some people that were interviewed that we then saw getting into makeup and showing them as their characters. Like the makeup effects in some of them are really cool.
Yeah, and they had interesting people that they interviewed who had been in a lot of haunts. So you had a interesting perspective of what it takes to be an actor within a haunt and what, you know, why you do it and all this other stuff. But yeah, the makeup, I could relate to that. I'm the same way. I usually hate being on camera unless I'm in some sort of getup so that I could be someone else. And I think that's what the haunters especially want to do. They want to get into the costume. Like, for example, I worked in a I didn't work. I volunteered at a haunted house at our old school at All Saints. And all I did was I put on a long, you know, claw thing, and I would, that's all I would do. And I had so much fun for like 3.5 hours. It was awesome. So the act of actually scaring people is an adrenaline rush in itself, just as much as being scared. And so I think there's some sort of symbiotic relationship that you can have that this film shows that people have a hard time finding with their significant other, or even with their neighborhood or the other people, where other people are like, why are you having this fucked up shit happen in your house or around your house? Why would you do this satanic ritual, blah 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 blah? And it's not about that. It's about that symbiotic relationship where people want to be scared, and some people want to scare people, and have the safety of doing it, right? Like, that's ultimately the thing, is that everybody consents to everything, and that ultimately it's a safe environment for you to enjoy or be terrified by these experiences. And even if you have to use the safe word at some of these other places and say, no, I'm out, that's fine. That's 100% okay. And hopefully the actors who are in the haunt are there to go, it's okay, we're just actors, it's okay, you know.
Not in the extreme one, apparently.
Right, but not in the extreme one. And that's where I had a hard time relating to the guy, because I'm all about the safe word. I'm all about, let's go, let's both consent to something until it gets uncomfortable, and then we can both have a way to just go, you know what, gotta step back, safe word, peace, mercy, whatever the space, you know. And the fact that you can't get yourself out of it, I think is part of the appeal to people, but also I think ultimately the reason why there's so much controversy around it.
Probably. Well, yeah, no, I mean, all valid points, and I agree. So, you know, I think that is probably about where we can end this review, because I don't want to say too much more. We've talked a lot about it, so actually a little bit more than I thought we would, because ultimately it was a really entertaining documentary, and I like those. So if you guys are fans of horror, fans of haunted houses, or fans of documentaries,
or if you've never heard of a full contact immersive haunted house where they literally waterboard people and torture them and force food down their throats, and I mean, it's terrifying. It's legitimate torture, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
And people sign up to do this because they're you know, they want to see how far they can go, and I think that's what ultimately is the appeal of this film. You should check it out.
Absolutely do so.
If you love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like I said, it's available on Netflix, so make sure you go watch it there. Until next time, though, I've been Cecil Laird.
I've been Producer Dave.
Make sure you click the link in the description box down below to that TeePublic site where you can support the channel by getting yourself some really cool horror gear with our logos, Horrific Harry, or any number of other cool horror designs.
I did a good Vanna White there.
Absolutely. So thank you guys very much for watching, and remember, stay scared!